I don't know what happened with that video, ma'am. It's not playing. Again, it's giving trouble. It's giving trouble to
What's
us.
the problem? What's the
Again, the
problem?
video is not playing. It's giving trouble to us.
The movie.
Yeah, yeah,
So maybe you can skip the movie.
yeah, yeah. I
Hmm.
can. That is only that is only the lost. Every time it's happening, I don't know what is. So, what is poetry? Poetry is poetry. Poetry is nothing but a poetry is writing that formulates a concentrated, imaginative awareness of experience in a chosen language and create a specific emotional response through meaning, sound, rhythm, as given by Encyclopedia Britannica. And when it comes to poet, who is a poet? A poet is a person who composes and creates together with the eloquence of expression. Poet has a power to influence the society and can bring about remarkable changes, yet he is mostly unacknowledged as their work is not directly reflected in the society as common people are ignorant of their contribution towards sociological development. Uh, Welcome, my dear friends and viewers and esteemed luminaries and guests. Welcome to the Fatal Brains, a place where poets meet to share their minds. Welcome to the seventh episode of Poets Talk About Poets, Songs of India. And we started this program in memory of Jayanta Mahapatra, who passed away in the August 27th of 2023. And this program is to highlight basically the Indian language poets and their contribution and their indelible mark that they left in the society. Our panel members will be talking about a particular poet or writer of their choice, and they each will be given 15 minutes to present their choice of poets. In the last episode, we got to learn about Sarojini Naidu, who talked about, I mean, Miss Niharika Chibberjoy talked about Sarojini Naidu, and Dr. Anasuya Kumar talked about Aurobindo Ghosh, Dr. Urvasi M. Pandya talked about Ganga Sati, a Gujarati medieval poet, and Dr. Rupali Sarkar Gaur talked about Harendranath Chattopadhyay, Hindi poet, a very well-known Hindi poet. Today we have the guest panel, Dr. Mandira Ghosh. Dr. Mandira Ghosh would be talking about Sitakanta Mahapatra, Miss Sanjula Sharma would be talking about Ramdhari Singh Dinkar. Miss Chadha would be talking about a Punjabi poet, Bhai Singh, and Dr. Lakshmishree Banerjee would be talking about Toru. Along with, I have with me retired the former professor of Delhi University, Sri Venkateswara College, Dr. Rupali Sarkar Gaur, along with me, will be acting as a moderator and is a mentor of our Fatal Bands group. So I would welcome the honorable guests and scholars, and I would ask Dr. Rupali Sarkar ma'am to begin the show.
We'll welcome honorable poets who are also our friends. This is a very special program that we do because we felt that we were writing poetry and we were talking about our poems, but somewhere we were forgetting our great poets and our great writers from whom this nation has found inspiration. And so we decided that we would invite poets and scholars, academics, people who have written about these great writers for this program. So, Prasanna, you can
Yes.
begin with our first guest. And thank
Uh,
you, everybody, for accepting our invitation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. So, let me take the pleasure of inviting and introducing Dr. Miss Mandira Ghosh. Miss Mandira Ghosh is an eminent poet and author who has penned more than 21 books in wide-ranging titles. She is the treasurer of the Poetry Society of India and also in the editorial board. She is awarded with Senior Fellowship of Ministry of Culture, Government of India, and also is a guest editor of the special Indian edition of the 7th Quarry Swansea magazine from Wales. She has arrived at a point where science meets physics and literature. Today, Mandira Ghosh ma'am will be talking about Sitakanta Mahapatra. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so very much, Prasanna Kumar and Rupali Sarkar Gaur, for inviting me to this prestigious platform and to speak on one of my favorite Indian poets, Dr. Sitakanta Mahapatra. Hi everyone. They have taken a great initiative. Both Prasanna Kumar and Rupali Sarkar Gaur have taken a great initiative to organize this program, Songs of India, to pay humble tribute to Jayanta Mahapatra, on whose memories this particular program today we are going to listen. Talking of Dr. Sitakanta Mahapatra, who is a major Indian poet, he was born on September 17th in 1937 in a village Mahanga situated on the banks of Chitrotpala, which is a tributary of the great Mahanadi in Odisha. The best thing about his life is that he grew up reciting and listening to the Oriya version of Bhagavad Gita in a traditional household, and the stamp of that could be found in the later works of his poetry. He writes beautiful lines in Your Village and Orissa. His village in Orissa, river, Bhagavad Gita, his father, immediate neighbors, neighborhood of the sky, the birds takes place in his poetry. According to Shamsur Rahman, the themes apparently may be ordinary, but turned extraordinary with his deft fingers. His style is diverse, distinct, and wide, and verse can be defined in his own poem, The Path. He realized very early that all beings search for their own paths, but they are all different paths. A person cannot take a single path, all people take. Columbus took a different path, Buddha took a different path, Abhibandhu took a different path, he himself took a different path. His most famous book is The Sky of Words, or Shabdara Akasham. It's in Oriya, originally in Oriya, for which he got the Science Academy Award in 1974. And also, this is the best of his poetry I included in this book, capturing the very soul and the spirit of the original creation of human Oriya. Oriya is one of the classical languages of India and the Eastern India, which is extremely rich, and the people born here are extremely illumined, intellectual, and into the letters, if you understand this thing. The anthology of Shabdara Akasho, or the Sky of Words, remains a significant work in the poems combine lyrical grace with metaphysical intensity and provide eloquent comment on the complex pattern that is modern existence. Now, his poetry primarily are based on translation from Oriya to English by Jayanta Mahapatra himself translated his poetry. And there are several others, including the poet himself, he has translated his own poetry. The tone sometimes is pessimist, and there is evidence that man is a sensitive, and he looks for the tradition and against the modernization in poetry. Not to talk about his life and the awards. Before that, I want to read two lines from these are very two favorite poems of mine. Your Village is written by Sitakanta Mahapatra quite some time. In Your Village, on the pictured mud walls, elephant dance. Look at the poetic devices. Rights depends on Odisha. The village elders resting against the walls of the enclosed courtyard at the roads and whose Bhagavad Gita they read every evening. So Bhagavad Gita plays a dominant role in his life and also in his poetry. The Song of Zara is another famous Death of Krishna. Death of Krishna is a very touching poem, and we all know that Jara the hunter by chance or mistakenly killed Krishna. The Song of Zara is another important and significant poem. And in this poem, he uses the myth and the legend. Sitakanta Mahapatra has written more than 15 collections of poetry, 5 essay collections, a travelogue, over 30 contemplative works. Apart from the numerous translations, his poetry collection have been published in several Indian languages, and the notable works has already been said: Satbir Akasha, The Sky of Earth, Samudra, and Onek Sharot. He was awarded the coveted 1974 Sahitya Akademi Award in Odiya for his poetry collection of Sky of Words. He was awarded India's highest literary honor, the Gyanpith, in 1993 for outstanding contribution to Indian literature. He was the secretary to the Ministry of Culture, IS. He got a citation from the Bharatiya Gyanpith, which said, deeply steeped in Western literature, his pen has the rare fragrance of the native soil. As I already said, modernization he rejected, and he went to his native land to get the images, to get the words, to get the legends, to get the myths. Lyricist and writer Prafulla described the works of Mahapatra as part of the new poetry in Orissa, expressing a contemporary consciousness of Orissa culture amidst an increasingly urbanized and technological environment. According to him, Mahapatra addresses philosophical problems, basically metaphysical and philosophical problems of human existence he addresses, with an awakening of a new kind of spiritual identification with the past. He talks of Yashoda's soliloquy, he talks of Puja, whom was this thing by Lord Krishna. He looks for new values with which to make the sense of chaotic existence. In Shabdir Akasha, the sky of words, one may discern this search for coherence in more elaborate situations, both personal as well as social. I should say also metaphysical. The protagonist in my garden is a very famous poem. In my garden waits for the moment to renew the old acquaintance by saying, my dearest friend, my agony. So it acts as an oxymoron. Dearest friends can be agony also because they haven't met for quite some time. Poetry has a deep meaning in the sense of time and transition of life, transcending his poem to a higher self, a higher consciousness. Several critics of him, review writers, they praised because he is a pessimist, no doubt, but he also talks about the higher values, higher consciousness of life. In a recent interview, in an interview by Rajiv Mehrotra, I have seen Dr. Sitakanta Mahapatra talking that I write in Odiya in a language of my dreams. This is a dream in the language of his dream is Odiya and not English. Though he himself has translated, but he prefers to write in English, in Odiya. According to Shamsir Rahman, the theme of the poems are ordinary. The lemon tree, the grandfather, paddy harvesting, the mother's, the Ryun temple, it's a beautiful poem, the rock. But the thing is that they become extraordinary with his deft fingers. Now, regarding translation, he has also said a very interesting thing. He said that once a king went to the forest and heard a small bird singing a beautiful song, and he told his workers and ministers and other people to bring that bird to the palace. But the bird could not sing in the beautiful voice that she was singing in the environment of forest. So he tells them, bring the river here. The river was broad, but the bird could not sing the same song in the palace. So he says that the environment of the Odisha, of the places and the village, of the river plays a dominant role. Like in Jayanta Mahapatra's poems also, river plays a dominant role. Mahapatra, according to Nambar Singh, is a poet of words and time. His fondness for the concept of word and times is extraordinary. In many of his poems, like many of the poems of Odisha, Lord Jagannath takes us center stage. Various episodes of Krishna's life he recalls from his village days, and also that Yashoda looks at the face, mouth of the Krishna and the whole universe she finds. And this is essentially connecting the past and the present, the legend and the myth. This is the extraordinary thing. Now, apart from this, he has written tribals also. Tribal, I will just, before I read two of his poems, I want to speak on what he wrote on the poems of the tribal work. He has many others ex officio programs, including the senior fellow of the Harvard University. Apart from the fact that he was the secretary of the Ministry of Culture, he has held many other he was the honorary fellow of the International Academy of Poets, Cambridge University, chairman of the National Book Trust, New Delhi. He was the first ever. He is the recipient of many awards, including Odisha Sahitya Academy Award and others, Sharla Devi Award, and also his poetry in Odiya has been translated into several languages. He spent 2 years studying travels of Eastern India on a Homi Bhava Fellowship, 1975 to 1977. He has also 2 books on the social anthropology. He's a multi-fellow. I mean, he's a sensitive poet, no doubt. He is sensitive because he has thought of the tribals of India also, of the Eastern India who suffers a lot, who had been suffering, and he has written on the Santhal tribal culture. Santhal language has led to the publication of the 9 anthologies of poetry of the tribals, which he not only collected but also translated. I myself try to understand. In the Satbir Akasha, Akasha means sky, as we all understand. He writes, in the words, the sky, on the blue and grey words, on the face of those colored lines, my soul and the ancient life of earth, all are engraved. This leads to the recognition of eternity, the invisible self present at all times. O my blue sky, the grey real, O maimed, fragmental blue friend of my heart, By your tears and wounds only, what little understanding of this obscure world. This is a sense of pessimism one can see in his writing. In the soundless conspiracy of time, just see the use of the words. Equal as the infinite expanse of shapeless cave, your alone presence pierce all. Talking on him, Museum Ezekiel, the famous Indian poet, while reviewing his poems translated into English, said, suffering, as experienced in a sense of dissolution and despair, is redeemed by searching for and finding meaning as well as aesthetic form. This is like a sense of catharsis. All the trauma, all the sorrow, it has become in an aesthetic form, it looks like an artist's job. Weaver's weaver's job, a sculpture. There is no equivalent here of the home of the verbal fragmentation of Western poetry. On the contrary, there is a definite emphasis on the cohesive and the lucid. That is Sitakanta Mahapatra. He contributed his efforts for endeavors for the nation and state through his literary journey. Kalinga Literary Festival was inaugurated by him on 24th February 2014, and he was the chief guest and the key speaker of the festival. This, besides, he has become a key speaker to the Kerala Literary Festival also. His famous poems, if I have time, shall I go through? Do I have time?
2 minutes, ma'am.
Okay, I will just give a list of the some of the poems which I really like and I have read many times. Death of Krishna, already said. Song of Jara, Jara the hunter. Pavan or the wind. Pavan here, it is not the wind which is very nature, poet of nature. It's about the fire, you know, when the body is getting burnt in the fire. Wind comes and flames aggravate. Your village, Yashoda Solidaki, Orissa, cockfight, it's on war. The sky. How would you know, dear bird? To end, I will read the poem which I decided, epitaph. Just to conclude, one poem. He was always less than a blade of glass. From childhood, hungering on affection, was sensitive to the smallest of things without reason. He remained at forever like a child, knowing he could not walk in step. With the rest of the world, could not protect himself from the smell of the marigolds, the call of the stars, the wave of the evening breeze, sweet voices that force their way into the dark corners of his heart. I wish him good luck and creativity and long life. On behalf of in Poets Fraternity, I pay humble homage and tribute to him. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Conspiracies of times.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mandira,
Thank
for
you.
making a presentation on such a great poet
Yes.
who's amongst us. And, you know, for all of us who say that we have no time, he was an IAS officer.
Yes.
And still he's won the highest award in literature,
Yes.
the Gyanpith Award. And the most important for me when I look at Sitakanta Mahapatra is his interest in the tribal people of Odisha,
Right.
and that he collected he collected large number of their poems, translated them,
Exactly.
and brought it to us. So thank you so much for enlightening us, for making the beginning of this program so beautiful. We're happy to see Professor Dr. Lakshmishree Banerjee here. We're getting a bit worried, huh? So we go to our next poet, Prasanna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mandira Ghosh ma'am. Thank you for introducing Sitakanta Mahapatra and his personality and his work. And thank you. Before proceeding to our next coming guest, let me take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Lakshmishree Banerjee. Such an honor, ma'am. Thank you for joining. Viewers, let us welcome our next panel member. Our next panel member, Dr. Miss Sanjula Sharma. Miss Sanjula Sharma is a journalist, writer based in Delhi. She did her master's in English literature from Jadavpur University, Calcutta. She has written extensively for national dailies, journals, and magazines in both India and Kuwait. She was scriptwriter for GTV. She worked as a consultant editor for All India Management Association, IMA, for many years, and then quit field journalism to focus on writing books. Sanjula ma'am has authored 8 books of fiction and poetry. She is the founder of Happy Minds Learning Center in South Delhi and organizes various literary and creative events. As an active member of Poetry Society of India, Sanjula ma'am organizes various poetry programs in the capital. She is also a volunteer with Tamana, a school for children with special needs. Today she would be talking about uh, Ramdhari Singh Dinkar. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Prasanna, for your kind introduction and a warm note of appreciation to Dr. Rupali and Prasanna for this absolutely beautiful initiative. It's such a learning experience for us to not only participate, but also attend such good events which are intellectual and very well researched. So,
Thank
good
you.
evening to the audience also. And because the audience is multilingual, I will present the poet in English, but I will render his poetry in Hindi. Before I start, a very warm note of, appreciative words, I would say, for Prasanna. Not many here might be knowing that he has been doing this wonderful open recital, program event every single Sunday. He has the patience to host it so graciously and listen to poets worldwide. What enthusiasm, Prasanna. Great going, I must say. And thank you again, Dr. Rupali and Prasanna, for inviting me for this program. So let me start and read on one of my favorite poets. Okay. Ramdhari Singh Dinkar was born in 1908 into a peasant family in a village of Bihar. The natural surroundings, simple lifestyle, and the fragrance of the soil, made early impressions on his mind and was reflected later in his poetry. He was an eminent Indian poet who used the power of his words very effectively during India's fight for freedom. And more than anything, I would say he influenced the collective consciousness of the nation. This is a very rare feat. He was famous for his poems that were based on the Veer Rasa.
Prasanna, is she on?
That's what I was wondering, ma'am. I'm just checking it out. So power has gone, and it's been reconnecting us. As I said, there is this power issue happened. Okay, meantime, we can take. Ma'am, we can. Ma'am, we can continue our program with, Satbir, ma'am. Please unmute your mic, ma'am.
No, I said if we start with another poet,
Yes,
and then her
sorry for the
internet comes
interruption,
on.
madam. Sorry for the interruption, my dear friends, and it's deeply regretted that's this connection issue has happened from the other side. So I will now request Dr. Rupali Sakar, ma'am, to introduce Dr. Satbir Chadha, ma'am, to continue the program.
Are you sure? She won't turn up.
No, she's coming, ma'am. She's coming. Next we can take Sanjula, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for me it's a not just a great honor but a great pleasure to introduce Satvi Chadha. When I first met her, it was at a launch of a book on the armed forces, and I had found her because I had found her poem on Facebook and traced her. And it's very interesting that the chief guest, General V.K. Singh, who was also one of our ministers, who was the chief guest, he selected her poem to read it out. It was a great surprise. So I think it says much about the kind of poetry that she writes. So Satya Chadha is the author of the highly acclaimed book "For God Loves Foolish People," and that means I get loved too, for which she was awarded the Royal International Prize. She has been published in over 20 national and international anthologies containing poetry and short stories. Author of three solo poetry books, she was awarded the Litprana Award by the Author Press for her contribution to literature. She is also the founder of the Lissam International Prize for Literature, awarded every year to upcoming writers of English prose and poetry. Today, she will introduce us to renowned Punjabi poet and theologian Bhai Veer Singh. Sahitya Academy Award winner, honored with the Padma Bhushan, Bhai Veer Singh pioneered the literary revival of the Sikh religious writings. Over to our poet, Satbir Chadha.
Thank you, friends. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, friends, for having me over. Rupali, you're a darling. I'm Prasanna. I met you for the first time, but thank you so much for having me over and giving me the honor to take part in this prestigious program. So, I'm talking about Bhai Singh Ji. I'll start with a small introduction. In the monograph published by the Sahitya Academy to celebrate the birth centenary of Bhai Singh Ji in December 1972, Professor Harbans Singh says, and I quote, Bhai Singh, generally hailed as the father of modern Punjabi literature, appeared on the scene in the later decades of the 19th century when India was awakening into a new life and his sensitive soul responded to the stirrings of the time with an unprecedented subtlety and vitality. A versatile and profuse writer, he employed his pen to almost all genres of writing and enriched them by his remarkable command over the medium and his keen sense of experimentation, leading a dignity and charm to the language hitherto unattained. His sincerity of feeling and devotion to his art have served as inspiration to a whole generation of writers. His long and fruitful career was crowned with the Sahitya Academy's first award in Punjabi in the year 1955. And just to give you a taste of his style, very simplistic style, but a free spirit. So I'm reciting a short poem of his. It's called Meri Jinde. मेरी जिंदे तेरा थां किसी नदी दे किनारे तेरा थां किसी जंगल बेले तेरे पागां विच अरशां ते उडना ते गांदियां फिरन अकेले तेरा जीवन सीगा तेरे ही जोगा तू आपे आपे नाल खेले तू किवें रौलियां विच आ खलोती तू किवें रौलियां विच आ खलोती तेरे चार चुफेरे चमेले. So his spirit had attained that much freedom that the rest was human bondage, human performances, and responsibilities for him. And now about a bit about his bio. He was born in an aristocratic family in Amritsar. His grandfather, Baba Khan Singh, was a learned writer and poet, and Dr. Charan Singh, his father, who was more inclined to poetry. Bhai Singh Ji was the eldest of five siblings, and he was educated in an English missionary school while being taught the Guru Granth Sahib at home, Persian and Urdu with a Muslim Maulvi, and apprenticed to Gyani Harbhajan Singh for Sanskrit and Punjabi literature. His maternal grandfather was Gyani Hazara Singh, a leading scholar who wrote in Punjabi and Sanskrit. At 17, he was married to Bibi Chatar Kaur and they had two daughters, Kartar Kaur and Sushil Kaur. Bhaiji bypassed the job opportunities offered to him and chose to be an entrepreneur. And it is said that with his acumen and hard work, he turned into gold everything he touched. He began to play an important role in the Singh Sabha movement to eradicate superstitious practices and revive the faith in Sikh tenets. Bhai Sahib Ji, along with his friend Wazir Singh, set up the first lithography printing press where most Punjabi and Singh Sabha literature was published. It became a landmark in publishing for Punjabi writers of the time. The iconic monthly Khalsa Samachar was also published there, and it is still published today. He started his literary journey with his immensely popular novels, Sundari and Satwant Kaur, and they both have powerful women protagonists with deep rooted spiritual, moral, and physical courage. Being affluent, he lived in a luxurious life with a sprawling house replete with several gardens in the center of Amritsar, but without the conspicuous show of opulence. He spent the summers in cool Kashmir with his family and retinue of servants and loved its scenic beauty. In fact, a large part of his poetry is devoted to it and inspired by it. He was devoted to his family, his children, grandchildren, and great grandchildren. His stress for cleanliness and discipline was the hallmark in the household. As his granddaughter, the writer Rajinder Kaur Bali writes, as children, they ate at a well laid table, but mindfully. not spilling a drop of gravy or a grain of food. If they did, they would pay a fine of 8 annas, that is half a rupee. His love for nature is legendary. He grew exotic flowers in the gardens surrounding his house, and he would recite the Gurbani sitting on the steps of his Gurdwara, filling the air with a divine fragrance. I have heard that the first bouquet of flowers offered every morning at the Golden Temple, even today, still comes from the same gardens. His great granddaughter, Dr. Komal Kiran Dang, daughter of Kaviraj Singh, remembers in her childhood asking him innocently, Pitaji, you always recite Vaiguru and tell us of Vaiguru, but where is he? We never see him. Very lovingly he asked her if she could smell the fragrance of the roses, if she could feel the gentle breeze, the heat of the sun, then, but they were still not seen. The same way Vaigruji is always there but never seen. What a beautiful way to share the experience with a child. His spirituality was deep and free of rituals, ostentation, and superstition, and based on Sikh beliefs, Sikh history, and prevailing values. He was a progressive thinker with a modern outlook. He believed that a prosperous country needed good educational institutions and strong religious as well as financial institutions that would support and sustain the community and contribute to its growth. He was active, he was active in the working of colleges and promoted learning in all its forms. For his contribution to the cause of education, he was conferred the honorary doctorate by the Punjab University. He was a founding father of the Punjab and Sindh Bank, creating a valuable creating a valuable financial platform for the time and creating employment for thousands of people. After the independence of India and the following riots, he extolled the youth of his community to marry the partition widows and not go after young girls, to adopt their children, even personally extending his support to each of them. His works, his literary works, are a perennial fount of learning and spirituality. His literature is timeless in its reading. He was a philosopher, a poet, a translator, educator, social reformer, philanthropist, and a visionary. For his contribution to the country, he was conferred the Padma Bhushan by the Government of India in 1956. So, this was all about him and his family life, and one of his most famous poems. I will just read it to befit this talk. And this poem is so powerful. If you understand Punjabi, that it gives one the goosebumps while reading it. Being though in very simple language. It's Kambdi Kalai. ਸੁਪਨੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮਿਲੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਅਸਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਗਲਵਕੜੀ ਪਾਈ ਨਿਰਾ ਨੂਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੱਥ ਨਾ ਆਏ ਸਾਡੀ ਕੰਬਦੀ ਰਹੀ ਕਲਾਈ ਤਾਂ ਚਰਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਸੀਸ ਨਿਵਾਇਆ ਸਾਡੇ ਮੱਥੇ ਛੋ ਨਾ ਪਾਈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉੱਚੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਨੀਵੇਂ ਸਾਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਪੇਸ਼ ਨਾ ਗਈਆ ਕਾਈ ਫਿਰ ਲੜ ਫੜਨੇ ਨੂੰ ਉੱਠ ਦੌੜੇ ਪਰ ਲੜ ਉਹ ਬਿਜਲੀ ਲਹਿਰਾਂ ਉੱਡਦਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਪਰ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੀ ਛੂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਗਿਆ ਲਾਈ। ਮਿੱਟੀ ਚਮਕ ਪਈ ਇਹ ਮੋਈ, ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲੂਆਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਿਸ਼ਕੇ। ਬਿਜਲੀ ਕੂੰਦ ਗਈ ਥਰਰਾਂਦੀ, ਹੁਣ ਚਕਾ ਚੌਂਦ ਹੈ ਛਾਈ। ਬਿਜਲੀ ਕੂੰਦ ਗਈ ਥਰਰਾਂਦੀ, ਹੁਣ ਚਕਾ ਚੌਂਦ ਹੈ ਛਾਈ। Thank you very much, friends. And I think one can talk endlessly on a person like Bhai Veer Singh Ji, but I really wanted to bring out the social aspects and the the religious aspects of his work. And of course, his literary works are all there. The Bhai Veer Singh's Sadan is there in the center of Delhi on Bangla Sahib Road. It's a huge institution. It has a museum, it has libraries, bookshops, it's a publishing house, and auditoriums and whatnot. So I think if ever you have time, one should visit that place just to get the ambience of a literary institution, what a literary institution should be like. Thank you very much, friends.
Thank
Have a
you.
great. Thank you.
Like you said, it's endless. We could not, the main aim of the program is to highlight the social impact the poet has left, that which you well depicted. Over to Dr. Rupali Sarkar, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Satbir Chadha ji. Punjabi is otherwise, a language that we always think is very rude. But that is the common man's language, when he's talking, the farmer maybe. But when it is a poem about God and love, perhaps there is no other language that can express it with so much feeling. And on this program, we've had Amrita Pritam, we've had Shiv Kumar Batarvi, and now today we have had, thanks to you, we have come to know of Bhai Veer Singh. And what actually fascinates me about these poets is that, they come from different backgrounds. Some from great poverty, some people from, as you said, this gentleman was from so much of wealth. And yet the devotion and commitment to poetry, the commitment to literature, is unbelievable. It's not just a pastime. And Bhai Veer Singh contributed a great deal towards the upliftment of the understanding of the theology and the literary movements that the Sikhs were to again look at religious texts as literary works also. So thank you so much, Sadhvi. You have opened up doors for us to go read more about him, know more about him. And your recitation was so beautiful. Thank you so much. We got goosebumps too. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ma'am. And thank you. That was Satbir Chadha ma'am talked about Bhai Veer Singh. Such an honor to learn about him. And we had this technical this power issue happened a while ago while delivering Sanjula Sharma ma'am. Now she would continue with her presentation on Ramdhari Singh Dinkar. What do you, ma'am?
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry for the technical glitch. It's raining a lot in Delhi. So we just had this sudden power cut and everything got disconnected. So let me continue, but let me again thank everyone for having me here. And, I really enjoyed both the presentations that I heard. They were beautifully done. And let me continue with mine. Like was just telling, the audience, and we were just discussing that, Ramdhari Singh Dinkar was again, like we just spoke, we said that they're from different backgrounds, the poets, right? But he was, like I said, from a peasant family in Bihar. And I just said that it was very creditable that, he influenced the collective consciousness of the nation as a patriotic poet. And this was because all his poems, his patriotic poems, were based, even a lot of his other poetry was based on the Veer Rasa, the bhav, the emotion that showcased both heroism and courage. So this earned him the title of Rashtriya Kavi or National Poet. Now, like many others who have grown up reading Dinkar's poems, I too find him not just patriotic, but extremely inspiring. His verse was in sync with the voice of the common man. His themes were those that went beyond borders. They were appealing and they were very universal. Themes of fortitude, of courage in daily life, strength in times of trial, hope, and of course, patriotism motivated his fans and followers across the nation and beyond as well. He was largely influenced by the writings of Iqbal, of Keats, of Milton, and of course, Tagore. His work brought him numerous accolades like the Gyanpith Award, Padma Bhushan, and Sahitya Akademi Award, among others. He served as a member of the Rajya Sabha and was also Hindi advisor to the government of India. You know, the former Prime Minister of India, Vajpayee ji, himself an exceptional poet, praised Dinkar's original thinking and dexterity of both prose and poetry that made him famous, not only in India, but on the global literary stage as well. Here was a worthy writer who never compromised on his ethics. He never compromised on his political views and proudly upheld the dignity of Indian literature. We salute him for this. When he passed away in 1974, he left behind a rich legacy of not just poetry, essays, and a large body of literary work that includes masterpieces like Rashmi Rathi, we all know of that, Krishna Ki Chetavni, Urvashi, and epic poem Hunkar. But there were echoes of courage in the hearts of readers who still revere him as one of the most inspiring poets of India. And that is why I have picked up his inspiring, patriotic, as well as other poems that I think will appeal to everybody sitting here in the audience, and which actually appealed to me ever since I was a child and while growing up. So let me present his work to you by reciting my favorite lines from the many he penned down. So this is his definition of an exemplary man. You know, when he says, आदमी के भीतर में मैं केवल यह चाहता हूं कि उसके भीतर की चिंगारी अभंग रहे, अपनी आग को वे कभी बुझने नहीं दे. You know, he says that for him, an ideal human is one who never lets the flame of victory and aspiration within him to ever extinguish. Chingari abhang rahe, he says. It means let your spark, your inner light, remain flawless and continuous. And when obstacles come your way, overcome them with courage. And this is a very, very relentless and a very common theme in most of his poetry, where he talks about the fortitude and the courage of man. And that is why I admire him. You know, on a short poem on the theme of strength has been translated very well by Ravi Kopra into English. So I'll read the English version, it's a short poem, and then I'll read the Hindi. The truth. In strength lies mercy. Your peace talks worthy only if you have the strength to victory. Tolerance, pardon, mercy. People will listen to only if your backdrop is shining and your victory unequivocal. And in the poem's vernacular version, beautifully written. सच पूछो तो शर्म में ही बसती है दीप्ति विनय की, संधि वचन संपूज्य उसी का जिसमें शक्ति विजय की, सहनशीलता, क्षमा, दया कुछ सभी पूछता जग है, सब तभी पूछता जग है, बल का दर्प चमकता उसके पीछे जब जगमग है. You know, you are only the strength that comes is then comes only when you are admired, not just for your strength, but the compassion and the softer qualities that make you into a strong individual. It's not just about raising your voice. No, it's about raising your words, your standard, your compassion, your mercy, and then the strength comes and you're admired by the world. It's a lovely short poem. Now I think it's impossible to speak about this great poet without rendering and analyzing one of his most loved poems called Veer. The central idea here is again of courage and of the strength that a man shows when he faces obstacles and the manner in which he surmounts them. This is a true definition of a warrior. Not just the brave hearts fighting for independence, not just the COVID warriors, the frontline or border soldiers, or the medical fraternity fighters. This relates to the warrior or the brave hero that is ever present or should be present in every single individual who wants to overcome mortality. So I'll just read a few stanzas from this beautiful poem, Veer. सच है विपत्ति जब आती है कायर को ही दहलाती है सुरमा नहीं विचलित होते क्षण एक नहीं धीरज खोते विघ्नों को गले लगाते हैं कांटों में राह बनाते हैं मुंह से न कभी उफ कहते हैं संकट का चरण न रहते कहते हैं जो आ पड़ता सब सहते हैं उयोग निरत नित रहते हैं है कौन विघ्न ऐसा जग में टिक सके आदमी के मग में मानव जब जोर लगाता है पत्थर पानी बन जाता है मानव जब जोर लगाता है पत्थर पानी बन जाता है गुण एक में बढ़कर एक प्रखर है छिपे मानव के भीतर मेहंदी में जैसी लाली हो वर्तिका बीच उजियाली हो बत्ती जो नहीं जलाता है रोशनी नहीं वे पाता है बत्ती जो नहीं जलाता है रोशनी वो नहीं पाता है सो an off quoted line मानव जब जोर लगाता है पत्थर भी पानी बन जाता है wonderful wonderful metaphor when you push when you crush a boulder metaphorically mentally physically with all your strength your might and determination it becomes water in your hands such a wonderful metaphor and you achieve the impossible. So now, 3 years ago on India's Independence Day, the Poetry Society of India organized a wonderful program and I presented Ramdhari Singh Dinkar's wonderful, again, extremely inspiring poem, Asha Ka Deepak. This exhorts and challenges every single Indian to reach his goal and never tire in his efforts to do so. So I think you've heard me speaking live for quite some time. So if I can just request Prasanna, please to play the video. So you can just hear this poem, in a video form. This is Asha Ka Deepak.
Today I am uplifted by hope and I recite for you Ramdhari Singh Dinkar's Asha Ka Deepak. ये प्रदीप जो दिख रहा है झिलमिल दूर नहीं है थक कर बैठ गए क्या भाई मंजिल दूर नहीं है चिंगारी बन गई लहू की बूंद गिरी जो पग से चमक रहे पीछे मुड़ देखो चरण चिन्ह जगमग से। बाकी होश तभी तक जब तक जलता तूर नहीं है, बाकी होश तभी तक जब तक जलता तूर नहीं है। थक कर बैठ गए क्या भाई, मंजिल दूर नहीं है। अपनी हड्डी की मशाल से हृदय चीरते तम का, सारी रात चले तुम दुख झेलते कुलिश निर्मम का। एक खेप है शेष किसी विद पार उसे कर जाओ, वह देखो उस पार चमकता है मंदिर प्रियतम का। आकर इतना पास फिरे वह सच्चा शूर नहीं है, आकर इतना पास फिरे वह सच्चा शूर नहीं है। थक कर बैठ गए क्या भाई, मंजिल दूर नहीं है। थक कर बैठ गए क्या भाई, मंजिल दूर नहीं है। दिशा दीप्त हो उठी प्राप्त कर पुण्य प्रकाश तुम्हारा, लिखा जा चुका अनल अक्षरों में इतिहास तुम्हारा। जिस मिट्टी ने लहू पिया वह फूल खिलाएगी ही, जिस मिट्टी ने लहू पिया वह फूल खिलाएगी ही। अंबर पर घन बन छाएगा ही उच्छ्वास तुम्हारा। और अधिक ले जांच देवता इतना क्रूर नहीं है, और अधिक ले जांच देवता इतना क्रूर नहीं है। थक कर बैठ गए क्या भाई, मंजिल दूर नहीं है। थक कर बैठ गए क्या भाई, मंजिल दूर नहीं है, मंजिल दूर नहीं है। वंदे मातरम।
Thank you so much. So this was Ramdhari Singh Dinkar. Manzil dur nahi hai. You know your destination, your dream destination, your goal is never far. So do not tire. Do not ever give up, says the poet. And I truly believe in him. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Incredible, ma'am. Abhang. Like you said, the power comes from not by rising voice, but through, giving out words. Uh, Remarkable, remarkable. Uh, each line mentioned as a metaphoric is something. It's great. Over to Dr.
Yes,
Rupal.
very, very inspiring presentation, Sanjula. And you picked up I'm an Inqalabi poet, मैं इनकलाब में जीती हूँ। तो मैं तो वेट कर रही थी कि आप सिंहासन खाली करो कि जनता आती है, आप
Yeah.
सुनाओगे हमें।
Yes.
हाँ? That
Yes.
was
That
his
was
most,
the same with the
so
common man. Very true.
बस
Very true.
सिंहासन खाली करो कि जनता आती है। तो
Yeah.
ये राष्ट्र कवि के बारे में आपने हमें इतना समझाया, इतना बताया। We are very, very grateful. And you know what is happening in this program is that it's just 15 minutes, I know, but you're opening up to us more reading of these poets. We want to know more about them. You have brought them back into our lives, into our souls. So I can only be very, very grateful for your presentation and for being here, Sanjuna. So
Thank
we
you so
have
much.
now our next poet, Prasanna. Please start,
Let me
introduce
take,
her and then I will speak about her. Yes.
yeah.
I would have to. I would have to carry a big bora, on my back for her biodata, So, कहाँ से लाऊं? Big sack. One will need a sack to introduce Lakshmishree Banerjee. I sometimes wonder what she does all day, every minute she's writing poetry. Every minute. And then I feel so small and stupid because it takes me days to be able to put together two lines. And then I write between the whistles of the pressure cooker, and Lakshmishree is everywhere. So let me introduce a very, very honorable poet, multiple award-winning global poet with 11 books of poems and several academic publications to her credit. Dr. Lakshmishree Banerjee also happens to be an ex-vice chancellor, a university professor of English and cultural studies, a radio and TV vocalist, and a senior Fulbright scholar and Commonwealth scholar. She believes, and I believe with you, Lakshmishree, that in the transformative power of the pen. And I think all the writers who we have spoken about also believed in the same, in the transformative power of the pen. So we welcome you to talk about Toru Dutt. I first read Toru Dutt, the poem of Toru Dutt, when I was an undergraduate, the first year. And her life story, and the fact that they were among the first people to travel out of India, the first family to travel out of India. And she wrote in French, and you tell us about her. So I welcome you this evening to talk to us about Toru Dutt.
Please unmute your mic.
There, I've done it. You can hear me? Okay. I can't see myself properly, but anyway. Um, well, I think if I could see myself a little big, I can see myself very, very small. I don't know.
We can see you beautifully.
We can
Okay.
see you. Everybody can see you.
Yeah. But I'm only looking at Prasanna, and I'm very thankful. Prasanna, I know that Prasanna is really doing a lot for poetry, and of course Rupali, with all the good things that she said about me. Well, I will not deny that I write poetry very often, but I must add that I write it more as a kind of a survival strategy. It is almost for me like a conception in the middle of the night or in the middle of the day, and there is some baby kicking inside my stomach, and unless I let it out, I'm really at pain. So that is all the pain of conception and the conception of a poem. But I think I'm very grateful to Rupali for suggesting to me, it was her suggestion, that I should be talking about Toru Dutt. And I would fulfill I feel a very sacred duty as an Indian poet of India writing in English, and of course a woman myself that I am not really a feminist. It tells me that the internet connection is unstable. Can you hear me? Can you
Yes,
hear
ma'am.
me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay. I don't know why it's telling me okay. If you can't, then let me know. So it's my very sacred duty that Toru Dutt, being the founding figure of Indian English poetry, or Indian poetry, what was known then as Indo-Anglian poetry. Then it came to be known as Indo-English poetry. Then it came to be known as Indian English poetry. And finally, we say today that we are writing Indian poetry in English. Now, whatever that verbiage or terminology may mean, she is the pioneer of Indian poetry in English. And we must understand, before I talk about her poems, the actual cultural ambience of Bengal. The cultural ambience of Bengal, where she was born in 1856, just 5 years before Tagore, on the cusp of the Bengal Renaissance. And Calcutta was then, we know, the capital of British India. And I would be very proud to state that, proud in a very humble way, of course, that Calcutta and the Bengalis of Calcutta, who were at that point of time primarily quite from erudite and affluent families, not just affluent, not just erudite families, they were exposed a lot to the outside world. And so the beginning of multiculturalism in India, because the Bengal Renaissance, I believe, was also the Indian Renaissance, because at one point of time we would say that what Bengal thinks today, India thinks tomorrow. That was the colonial India, which was Calcutta, and yet we embraced our own values, whether they were from the mythologies or scriptures or pujas or texts or scriptures, and yet we were embracing the Western world. It was a very, I should say, a very rich time for people to be bred and brought up in this kind of a cosmopolitan heritage, with a lot of opening up to the Western world, and at the same time being very conscious of one's own ethnic values, of one's own ethnicity, one's own ethos. So here is Toru Dutt, where it's a very sad story because she died at a very young age of 21. She just wrote from the age of, let us say, 8 or 9. She was 8 or 9. But I should believe that she was a very precocious child, extremely absorbent of the rich cultural, intellectual atmosphere of her home. She came from a very affluent family. Her father was Govind Chandra Dutt, who was initially a Hindu, but when she was 6 years old, they embraced Christianity. Now, this was also the Bengal of that time, because people were, even Tagore's grandfather, he embraced Brahmoism, because that was a time, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, there were people who were giving up on the ritualistic and, let us say, the superstitious side of Hinduism. The class tension, the caste tension, the Brahmanism, which was all according to the very educated, very liberal, very progressive Bengalis. For them, that was an obstacle. And so they themselves and their progeny, they were opened up to the entire world. They were the first family, as Rupali rightly said, that they traveled to Europe when Toru Dutt was only 13 years old. Keats, mind you, she was also very much impacted by, like her own generation, we say the founding pioneers, Indian English, who of course was not an Indian, but he embraced Indianness. So was Sarojini Naidu, who came later after Toru Dutt. So was Aurobindo Ghosh, who was writing in English to a large extent. So was Michael Madhusudan Dutt, who embraced Christianity but was a Bengali. And later on, he wrote the famous Bengali epic, Meghnad Bod Kabbo, which made him a bilingual of the best category. So Bengal was at its best. And though Toru Dutt lived for 21 years, we can get her flavor of this kind of bridging of cultures. This is very important, the hybridity that we get in her. On the one hand, she is writing in English. On the other hand, her most famous book, which was, of course, published posthumously in some way like Emily Dickinson of America. But then she was not Emily Dickinson because she was not cloistered. She was not keeping at home. She was open to the world, to the Occident. And there was a very large amount of mixing of the cultures, of the different cultures of the world. So I will begin just first with a very famous poem of hers, but I will not read the entire poem. It's called the casuarina tree. And here you will see that her poetry is very nuanced. At that early age, she's writing almost a poetry which has layers and layers and very densely textured poetry. It's very densely textured, and therefore, on the surface of it, it is the casuarina tree, which her home in Calcutta and Maniktala had that huge tree. But then that tree has many layers to it. That tree is very much a kind of a nostalgia for her. Her poem is full of reminiscences, nostalgia, and also a kind of a melancholy streak with positivism. A melancholy streak because her two siblings died very early of consumption or tuberculosis. She exactly had the same life as John Keats. John Keats' brothers also died of consumption. He also died at the age of 25. She died at the age of 21, and her siblings had died before her. So this premonition of death is there. But despite that, she has this fortitude, this strength of sort of bringing out the magnificence of nature, the beatitude, the plenitude of nature, everything that is there, and sort of enhancing it with a very deep human consciousness and moral aptitude. You know, everything in her poetry is as much spiritualist as it is mystic, like the Indian, as well as a lot of romantic imagery from the English romantics. You see a lot of Keats, Shelley, and Wordsworth in her. But I will say she's not a copy cat or something like that. She has imbibed something from the West. Also, she was translating a lot of French. Her first book was A Sheaf Gleaned from French Fields, 165 poems, out of which only 8 poems were written by her sister, but all of it was written by her. She was also translating Victor Hugo. She was also writing a novella about a Spanish girl, Bianca. She was also erudite and educated in Sanskrit. At that young age, she was multifaceted. So first, I will read from just 2 stanzas. It's a long poem. My casuarina tree, which is full of her reminiscences of the companions she played with, because she left for Europe and she would feel very nostalgic about her home. And of course, nature is someone like word. Nature is imparting a lot of human kindness and humanishness and humanism and womanism also, but not so much of womanism. She's not a feminist at that point of time. Women writers writing in English were not feminists in the belligerent sense of the term, but they were definitely highly feminist. Consciousness was there very much in them, in a more muted sense of the term. So the female consciousness was there. So here is see, she says, mind you, she uses the word a casuarina tree. Okay, so she feels very melancholic. Often in her poems, we find death is like a shadow clouding her lines, and very soon she becomes positive. So a lot of dichotomy in her poetry, a lot of dichotomy, which is very rich. It's very difficult to imagine a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, or even a 20-year-old girl writing like this. Now, our casuarina tree, like a huge python, winding round and round, the rugged trunk indented deep with scars, up to its very summit near the stars. Now, this cosmic consciousness, she's starting with the land, the soil, Mother Earth, and then she's going up to the cosmic consciousness. A creeper climbs in whose embraces no other tree could live, but gallantly the giant wears the scarf, and flowers are hung in crimson clusters, all the boughs among, whereon all day are gathered bird and bee, with one sweet song that seems to have no close, sung darkling from our tree. If you remember Hardy's, then again the Victorian age, darkling thrush. So she's using the word. Of course, darkling was a word which was first used by Shakespeare. And then how this word has come. And none of us, no poet ever exists in a vacuum. Somewhere our poetic consciousness is like our racial consciousness. We have not just in our own lifetime, we have actually, I believe so, we have imbibed poetry through the ages. If one is really into poetry and the passion of poetry, we have this poetic consciousness almost like our racial consciousness. So the vacuum is never there. Whether she read Shakespeare or not is not important, but she's using the word darkling. Now, darkling thrush was used by Hardy also. Darkling, I listen. It was used by Keats in The Nightingale. So all these things, what T.S. Eliot talks about as objective correlative, when he talks about the individual and tradition, because we are embedded in a kind of a tradition without us being so conscious about it. So with one sweet song that seems to have no close, sung darkling from our tree, while men repose. And then she says, when my first casement is wide open thrown. Now she's throwing her windows open, and the dawn is flickering in her eyes. I will go to the last stanza. And of course, the casuarina tree has a very objective tree in front of us. But then there are so many subterranean levels of thinking. I want to just finish off with the last stanza. Yes, the last stanza of our casuarina tree. And every time the music rose, every time the music rose, there is a music. Now, this music, whether it is the soft breeze or the leaves of the casuarina tree, or the breeze which is coming to her from the tales and the narratives of Indian mythological stories which have been narrated to her by her mother, we really don't know, but it is densely textured. Before my inner vision, now she is definitely a visionary and a mystic. At that age, it's really incredible. Mine inner vision rose a form sublime. Before my inner vision rose a form sublime. Thy form, O tree, as in my happy prime, I saw thee in my own loved native clime. When she is remembering her home and she's feeling very nostalgic. Therefore, I fain would come and consecrate a lay unto thy honor, tree, beloved of those who now in blessed sleep far I repose. Now, she is really often in penitence, not penitence actually, repentance or regret or lamentation about the loss of her only two siblings, one brother and her elder sister. Both have passed away with tuberculosis. Dearer than life to me, O casuarina tree. Alas, were they dearer than life to me? Sorry. I, beloved of those who now in blessed sleep repose, dearer than life to me, alas, were they. Dearer than life to me, alas, were they. Mayst thou be numbered when my days are done with deathless trees. So again, the tree has become for her a symbol of timelessness and deathlessness. Something, somewhere the sublime part of the sublimation of Wordsworth also comes in. Like those in Borrowdale. Now, we can see that now she's in England. So let us have you also as a deathless tree, like those trees in Borrowdale, under whose awful branches lingered pale fear, trembling hope. Now here's the dichotomy: fear, trembling hope, and death, the skeleton, and time, the shadow. May love defend thee from oblivion's curse. So this kind of wavering, I will not call it a wavering, it's kind of a poetic oscillation, between the actual negative things of life, which also includes death, because she has gone through the death of her siblings, and she also has a premonition of her own death. But despite that, she transcends it to a cosmic consciousness. And it is, for me, it is incredible. And I really thank Rupali, because, I have opened her up after I don't know how many, decades or years. I do not know. Though I have been teaching her, in the BA honors classes, or maybe MA, not MA first year, definitely BA honors. But still, now, with my age and with my maturity, I'm just, I'm thankful to Rupali. I'm discovering, or rather rediscovering her. Her mesmerizing, what should I say, reinvention of the, the cultural impact of the West on the East, and then also transcending from the personal very easily to the universal. So this kind of dichotomy is just, and then I have another poem which I want to talk about. Of course, one will say, well, maybe she was impacted by Wordsworth's Solitary Reaper. This poem is called The Sower. He's sowing the seeds. Now, if you compare the two poems, there is no apparent or evident similarity, except that Wordsworthian egotistical sublime has seeped into her without her knowing it. I think so. Because the sower is not a copy of Wordsworth's Solitary Reaper. I can definitely say that. And she talks about the silhouette of the sower. These 4 lines of the sower, I will just, I had some work, so I just scribbled something, and I'm not used to reading out so much unless it's a conference or something. So, this sower, she says, looking at him, I feel a thrill. This is called sower. The poem is called The Sower. Black and high his silhouette. Black, a silhouette, because he's sowing the seeds. Dominates the furrows deep. Now, the furrow itself is talking about, age, or a parched soil, or something which has been dug into. And then his silhouette, which is like a rising mount, almost like a summit, and this is again incredible, because again she's combining the land with the skies, with the horizon, with nature, with everything which is surrounding us. And at the central focal point, the pivotal point, there is definitely the cosmic consciousness of this girl, who is so much surrounded by not just erudition and cultural exposure, but also nature. For example, Bogmari. They had a garden house in Bogmari. Do I have time?
Ma'am, we ran out of time, ma'am. So we got to 1 more
Okay.
minute.
Okay.
You should continue,
Um,
ma'am.
So, yeah. So I would just round up by saying that if in our further, when we are as poets, we are practicing poets, all of us, if we forget Toru Dutt, I don't think that would be quite right, because that would be a real faux pas, not just a faux pas. I think it would be a blunder, because we should start rereading Toru Dutt, the romanticism that she has seeped into herself, and yet, and the most important part is about her, the Sita, Savitri, Lakshman, Dhruv, Prahlad, in her most famous book, which was posthumously, after she died, her father discovered those ballads and legends of Hindustan. Her most famous book, The Ballads and Legends of Hindustan. Look at the word ballads. It is not a ballad. But she's using that word because it actually talks about the music, the rhythmic resonance, the reverberation that she has in her poetry. She's using ballads, and also of such mythological figures. Sita, for example, she has written about Sita, Savitri, about women, mind you, womanhood at its best, not a Sita who is an imbecile, not about Sita Savitri as imbecile, but as women of great strength, of great power. So we have to read her tales and her narratives of the legends and ballads of Hindustan, which she learnt from her stories that were narrated to her by her mother Kshetromoni. So thank you all of us. Thank you, Rupali. Thank you, Prasanna, for this great interactive session. And bye-bye. We'll meet again.
Time would never run out, ma'am. This kind of, when you get to know about, like it's endless. It's endless. So over to Dr. Rupali Sarkar, ma'am.
Well, thank you so much, Lakshmishree, Dr. Lakshmishree Banerjee. You were at your best today. Yes, Toru, that needed to be brought today here. For me, it has also been getting in touch with a poet whom I had read about when I was only 14 years old. And now I'm hearing about her after so many years. I sent a WhatsApp message to my college friends, who say they have learned nothing in the college when we studied at Mount Carmel in Bangalore. And I said that despite the fact that we jumped over walls, I didn't forget Toru Dutt. That one, those bogmari tree and the casuarina tree and her life story. She translated in French. And Sita, this I came to know recently only that that she written about Sita. In the context of how we're having the Ram Janmabhoomi, you have somebody writing that many years ago about Sita, and she starts with how they wept when their mother told them the story of Sita. The three children sat and wept. The tears dropped from their eyes at the persecution. At the persecution that
persecution by her, by her husband.
Yes.
Persecution
And this is
by her husband. Not Rama as an idol, but exiled and persecuted by her husband.
Yes. Yeah. And to think that a young girl, your soul is old, our body may be young. There's something about soul, the continuity of the soul. Somewhere, as you said, you can, and France, they were in France, in England, Bengal, writing about Sita, writing about, translating in different languages. These are incredible people this evening that we have come across, and it's all thanks to you all for your scholarship, for your knowledge, and for having the patience to disseminate it to us, to give it to us. I'm sure many people are going to watch these programs, but Prasanna and I are growing every day, every time we listen to our poets, I feel that we have learned. I'm overwhelmed. Thank you so much. God bless all of us, all of our poets, and let there be more, knowledge.
We should especially
thank you so much.
We should especially thank for the for sparing the time and spending the time.
Yes, yes.
It's not an ordinary thing this age for us.
Actually, I actually only wish to thank the great poets that they have mentioned. I think we have given them this tribute. It is our duty to do it. And that you have accepted it and done it. That is also part of our journey and our friendship and our togetherness and our comradeship as poets. But I'm so thankful to learn about them. And of course, thank you so much, Prasanna. Without you, this would not happen.
Deep gratitude to all of you, ma'am. It's
I
like
can't
this.
pick on
All
Thank you,
sweet.
all
I
of
can't
you.
I can't pick on my son's brain the way I pick on Prasanna. You know, I'm all the time. And he's so sweet. Thank you so much. You're
So thank you,
providing
ma'am.
great contribution. Yes.
And
And we should
so
all meet, we seem to be, we should have a festival where we meet and we discuss and we talk,
Yes,
you know.
yes, yes.
Mm. Yeah.
so
Thank you so much.
Very
well,
much, very
Thank you, Satbir and and Sanjula. And somebody is missing, where is Mandira?
Sanjula, ma'am, and
Mandira.
Mandira Ghosh.
Yeah, and Lakshmishree. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rupali and Prasanna, so much, both of you, for having put this together. We really enjoyed being here this evening, and we also learned a lot from each other and from both of you. Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you
you
so
all.
much.
Thank you all. I love being with all of you. That-
Thank
Thank
you.
Good
So
night.
sweet of you, ma'am, to be accepting the kind invitation of this and coming up
Thank
with.
you all. Thank you. God
Thank you.
bless you. Be happy.
Thank
Be
you.
happy, all of you. Be happy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you in the maybe mid of the February on our next session, my dear friends. Thank you with that note. And the 8th episode. Thank you, Sanjula Sharma, ma'am.